Hey guys, tonight we're going to dive into a story about art, love, and a quiet sort of heartbreak that unfolds in a dusty studio. Imagine yourself in a place where the scent of turpentine and wet clay hangs in the air, a world where every brushstroke and every sculpted curve is a whisper of unspoken emotion. It's a love triangle, but not the kind with grand, dramatic fights. This one is painted in muted tones, a landscape of quiet longing and creative rivalry. You'd probably get a headache from all the fumes, not to mention the emotional tension. But for a night, let's pretend. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you are and what time it is for you in the comments. I'd love to know who's listening. Now, turn off the lights, maybe grab a pillow, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing in a small, crowded gallery. The air is warm, thick with the scent of wine and the low murmur of conversation. Your own portrait hangs on a far wall, a piece you poured weeks into, capturing the soulful, weary eyes of an old fisherman. You're a portrait artist, a lover of faces, and you believe every line, every wrinkle, tells a story you can capture in oil and canvas. You're holding a plastic cup of cheap white wine, feeling a little out of place, a little exposed. Then, you see him. He's standing by a sculpture in the center of the room, a piece of twisted metal and smooth stone that looks both chaotic and perfectly balanced. He's the sculptor, of course. His hands, even as he holds a glass, look like they belong to his work, strong, calloused, with a certain grace to them. You watch him, and he seems to be studying your painting, his head tilted. He doesn't look at it like everyone else does, with a quick glance or a polite nod. He seems to be dismantling it in his mind, finding the structure beneath the surface. You, in turn, find yourself doing the same with his sculpture, trying to understand how he balanced the cold harshness of the metal with the organic softness of the stone, that he catches your eye and offers a small, genuine smile. There's no flirtation in it, just a flicker of recognition, an unspoken understanding between two people who see the world in lines and shapes. You nod back, a silent acknowledgement. Later, you find yourselves standing near the snack table, both reaching for the last cracker with a dollop of goat cheese. Your hands brush, and it's not an electric moment, but a grounding one. It's as if a connection has been made, not of romance, but of shared purpose. You learn his name is Julian. He tells you he loves the way you captured the history in the fisherman's face, the weight of the sea. You tell him his sculpture looks like a storm made solid. He laughs, a quiet, rumbling sound. You talk for what feels like a few minutes, but when you finally look at your phone, an hour has passed. You find yourselves talking about your processes, your struggles, the way you both see the world not as it is, but as it could be. It's an instant connection, born not from superficial attraction, but from a deep, mutual respect for each other's art. As the night ends and the gallery empties, he says, "You should come by my studio sometime. It's a mess, but it's where the work happens." And you, without a second's hesitation, say yes. The next morning, you find yourself on a bus heading to a part of the city you've never been to before. You have his address scrawled on a napkin. You're nervous, but it's the good kind of nervous, the kind you feel before you start a new canvas, full of anticipation. You remember the old proverb about how you wouldn't survive a single night in the wilderness without a good sleeping bag, a bit like how you wouldn't survive an artist's life without a place to create. You get off the bus and walk down a cobblestone street, past old brick warehouses, and you can smell the industry of the place, the grit, the history. You find the building, a huge, old industrial space with giant, arched windows. He's waiting for you at the door, wearing a paint-splattered shirt that looks like a piece of abstract art in itself. He smiles, that same quiet, genuine smile from the night before, and you follow him in. The studio is exactly as he described, a glorious, beautiful mess. Sunlight streams through the high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. There are pieces of metal, stacks of wood, and half-finished sculptures everywhere. Sacks of plaster sit in a corner next to a large pottery wheel. On the other side of the vast space, there's a small, more organized area with a large easel and a table covered in brushes and tubes of paint. "I made some room for you," he says, gesturing to the easel. "It's not much, but..." You shake your head, a genuine smile on your face. "It's perfect." You set up your things, your canvases and your paints, and you begin. You fall into a rhythm together almost immediately. You paint, he sculpts. The silence between you isn't awkward. It's companionable, filled with the sounds of your work. The gentle scraping of a palette knife, the rhythmic tap-tap-tapping of a chisel against stone, the rustle of your brushes against the canvas. You work on your portraits, capturing the light that changes throughout the day, the way it catches the dust and makes the studio feel like a magical, sacred place. He works on a large piece, a figure of a man with his head tilted back, as if listening to something only he can hear. You don't ask what it is, and he doesn't offer. You just exist together in this creative bubble, two planets orbiting the same sun of inspiration. After a few days, you start to talk more. You take breaks together, sitting on the floor, drinking terrible instant coffee, and talking about everything and nothing. You find out he grew up in a small town, that he used to sculpt things out of sand on the beach as a kid. You tell him about your first set of oil paints, how you felt like you could create a new world with them. You talk about your fears, the fear of not being good enough, the fear that your art won't matter. He understands, because he feels the same way. You're not just two artists sharing a space. You're two souls sharing a purpose, a passion, a fear. Remember how in section 1 you thought you wouldn't survive in the wilderness? Well, this feels like your own little oasis in the wilderness of the art world. As the days turn into weeks, you find that you're not just working side by side. You're influencing each other. He'll glance at your work and suggest a different shade for a shadow, and you'll notice a flaw in the balance of one of his sculptures and point it out. It's a collaboration of spirits, a conversation that goes beyond words. You're beginning to see the world through his eyes, and he, you suspect, is beginning to see it through yours. The studio isn't just a workspace. It's becoming a home, a place where you belong. You get into the rhythm of your new life, and it's a good one. You wake up, you go to the studio, and you work. The hours fly by, punctuated by coffee breaks and quiet conversations. The sun moves across the massive windows, and the light shifts and changes, turning the dust motes into glimmering golden flecks. You've noticed something, though, something subtle but important. Julian is fascinated with a single model. Not just a model for a single project, but a person who seems to occupy a very special place in his creative mind. The model, a young woman with a striking profile and a certain melancholic grace, comes to the studio occasionally for sittings. She doesn't speak much. She has a stillness about her, an inner quiet that you can feel even when she's not there. Her name is Clara. When she's in the studio, the atmosphere changes. Julian is different, more focused, more intense. He's not just working. He's trying to capture something that seems just beyond his reach. You can see it in his eyes, a flicker of a deep, complex feeling. He doesn't look at her like he looks at other models. He looks at her as if he's trying to understand a secret she's holding, a story she's not telling. You find yourself intrigued, too. She has an emotional depth that you've never seen before. It's in the way she holds her head, the quiet sadness in her eyes. You can see why Julian is so drawn to her as a subject. Her presence begins to subtly influence your own work. You're not painting her, not directly, but you start adding more depth to the eyes of your own subjects, trying to capture that same sense of a hidden story. You find yourself using a different palette, more somber tones, to reflect the mood she brings into the studio. It's as if her very being is a new color in your paint box. One afternoon, while she's posing, Julian is working on a new sculpture, a bust of her face. You're working on a landscape, but you can't help but watch him. His hands move with a mixture of reverence and urgency, as if he's racing against time to capture her essence before it fades. You notice how he pays attention to every little detail, the slight curve of her lip, the way her hair falls just so. He's not just making a sculpture, he's building a memory of her. You remember from the opening of this story how your own work was about capturing the history in someone's face. You realize Julian is doing the same thing, but for him, it's not just a person he's sculpting, it's a feeling. You start to notice the little things. The way he gets her a cup of water, the way he drapes a blanket over her shoulders when the studio gets cold. He's gentle with her, almost tender, but there's a distance there, too. A wall you can't see but can feel. It's a silent, emotional choreography. You also see that she, too, has a certain fondness for him. It's in the way she looks at him when he's not looking, a soft, wistful expression. It's clear that the relationship between them is complicated, and you can't help but wonder what it is. You also can't help but feel a little pang of something you don't want to name. Jealousy, maybe? No, not really. It's more of a quiet ache, a sudden realization that there's a part of Julian you don't, and maybe can't, understand. A part that belongs to someone else. The weeks continue to pass, and the quiet rhythm of the studio is now layered with a new energy. There's an upcoming exhibition, a prestigious one, and both you and Julian have been invited to submit a major piece. This adds a new layer to your dynamic. It's not a nasty rivalry, but a subtle, unspoken competition. You both want to create something great, something that will be seen and appreciated, and in doing so, you're also trying to prove something to each other, to yourselves. You start working on a massive canvas, a triptych. You decide to paint a series of portraits that tell a story, a narrative arc of a single person's life. You pour all of your newfound emotional depth into it, using the somber palette you've been working with, but adding bursts of color to represent moments of joy. You're constantly thinking about Julian's art, about the way he sculpts, about how he sees the world. Your work is a reflection of him, of your feelings for him, even if you're not painting his face. Every brushstroke feels like a question you want to ask him, a conversation you want to have. Julian, on the other hand, is working on a large sculpture, a piece that seems to be a culmination of all his work. He's using all sorts of materials: metal, stone, wood, even some strange bits of glass he found in the street. The piece is of a woman, but it's not a realistic one. It's abstract, fragmented, as if she's being pulled in a dozen different directions. You can tell it's of Clara. It's her stillness, her melancholic grace, her quiet power, all rendered in solid form. He's trying to capture something that's not just her physical presence, but her emotional core. You find yourself watching him work, fascinated by his process. He's so focused, so determined. He's not just building a sculpture, he's building a monument to his muse, to his feelings. You remember a joke from a while back, how you couldn't survive with all the emotional baggage of being an artist. Well, now you're living it. The studio is full of a new kind of tension, but it's a creative one. You'll work late into the night, fueled by caffeine and the desire to make your piece perfect. You'll both fall asleep on the floor of the studio, a blanket over you, your head resting on a pillow made of old rags. You'll wake up to the morning sun and the realization that you're not just colleagues anymore, but something more, something deeper. A part of you wants to confess your feelings, to tell him how much his presence, his work, his very being means to you. But another part of you is afraid. You're afraid of what it will do to your friendship, to your creative rhythm, to the delicate balance you found here. And you're afraid of the unspoken truth, that his heart is already preoccupied with someone else. So you keep working and you pour all of your feelings into your art, hoping that he'll see them, hoping that he'll understand. The creative tension in the studio has been building for weeks now, a silent current flowing between you and Julian. Your triptych is coming along, a symphony of emotion and color, and his sculpture of Clara is taking on a life of its own. It's powerful, a little sad, and profoundly beautiful. One afternoon, Julian has to run out for more supplies, and you're left alone in the vast, quiet space. You decide to take a break from your work and walk around, looking at the half-finished pieces, the tools, the bags of plaster. It's a moment to just breathe and be with the art you've come to love. As you wander, you notice a small, inconspicuous door in the back of the studio, a door you've never seen open. It's slightly ajar, which is unusual because Julian is usually meticulous about keeping it locked. Curiosity gets the better of you, and you gently push the door open. Inside is a small, dusty storage room. It's cluttered with old canvases, broken tools, and pieces of work he's clearly abandoned. Your eyes scan the room, and then you see it. Tucked away in a corner, covered with a white sheet, is something you immediately know is important. You hesitate for a moment, but the pull is too strong. You have to know. You lift the sheet, and a gasp escapes your lips. It's a sculpture of Clara, but it's not like the one he's working on now. This one is different. This one is raw. It's a full figure, not a bust, and she's not standing in a pose. She's seated, her knees drawn up to her chest, her head resting on them. She looks vulnerable, broken, her body language a testament to a deep, unshakable sadness. The detail is incredible, but it's not the detail that gets you. It's the emotion. It's the way her shoulders are slumped, the way her hands are wrapped tightly around her shins. This isn't a sculpture of a model. It's a sculpture of a soul in pain. You can see that it's unfinished. One hand is just a rough shape, and there are places where the clay has started to dry and crack. You run your fingers over the smooth stone of her cheek, and you can feel the tenderness with which Julian must have worked on this. This is the piece that holds his secret, the one he's never shown to anyone. This is the piece that tells the real story of his feelings for Clara. It's not just a fascination, it's a deep, poignant empathy. He sees her pain, and he's trying to capture it, to hold it, to make it beautiful. The wave of understanding washes over you, but it's mixed with a fresh pang of sorrow. You realize that your quiet ache from earlier wasn't misplaced. Julian's feelings for Clara aren't a passing fancy. They are deep and complex, tied to something profound and possibly tragic. You feel like you've intruded on a very private moment, a hidden part of his heart. You gently put the sheet back over the sculpture, your own heart a little heavier now. When Julian returns, he doesn't mention the room, and you don't either. But you look at him differently now, with a new layer of knowledge and a new understanding of the artist and the man. You're left with the question, what could make a man create something so full of pain and then hide it away? You think back to that old joke about how you wouldn't survive with all that emotional baggage. Turns out, he has a secret bag of his own. The discovery of the hidden sculpture has changed everything. It's like you found a secret key to Julian's heart, but the lock it opens reveals a chamber filled with a sadness you can only guess at. You don't bring it up, of course. How could you? It feels too personal, too much like an invasion. So you go back to the rhythm of the studio, the scraping, the tapping, the gentle hum of creation. But now, every time Julian works on his sculpture of Clara, you see the unfinished piece in your mind's eye. You see the pain, the vulnerability, and you understand the quiet longing in his eyes. One night, you're both working late. The city outside is quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows through the high windows. You're both tired, and a comfortable silence has settled between you. You're cleaning your brushes, and he's sitting on a stool, just looking at his work. He lets out a long sigh, and you turn to look at him. He runs a hand through his hair, leaving a smudge of clay on his forehead. "I don't know if I can do it," he says, his voice low. "Do what?" you ask, your heart rate picking up a little. "Capture her," he says, gesturing to the sculpture. "Her. The real her." He looks at you, and his eyes are full of a vulnerability you've never seen before. It's as if he's finally allowing himself to be seen. You sit down on the floor next to him, your brushes forgotten. "What do you mean?" you ask softly. He looks down at his hands, at the clay and stone stuck under his nails. "Clara," he says, and just the way he says her name tells you everything. She's an impossible muse. There's a sadness in her that's so profound, and I don't know how to reach it, how to show it. He pauses, and then he says something that makes your heart clench. "I'm in love with her." He says it quietly, almost to himself, as if confessing a secret to the universe. "And I have been for a long time." The words hang in the air between you, heavy and thick. You feel a pang of something sharp and painful, but it's not a surprise. You knew this, didn't you? You just didn't want to admit it to yourself. You sit in silence for a moment, processing the confession. You think about the unfinished sculpture, the raw emotion in it. You think about the way he looks at her, the way he works on her pieces with a kind of reverence. And you understand. Does she know? You ask, your voice barely a whisper. He shakes his head. "No, I can't tell her. She's not available. Not emotionally." He explains that her past is filled with a kind of sorrow that makes her keep everyone at a distance. She sees him as a friend, a collaborator, but not as a potential lover. He knows this, and yet he can't stop. He's an artist, and he's compelled to create, to capture, to love. And you, a portrait artist who loves faces and the stories they hold, you understand this kind of beautiful, terrible compulsion more than anyone. You both sit in the quiet for a little while longer, and as you look at him, at his tired eyes and his smudged forehead, you feel a new emotion. It's not just sorrow for yourself, but a deep, profound empathy for him. The atmosphere in the studio is different now, heavier. Julian's confession hangs in the air like a thick, tangible cloud. You're still working, of course, but your focus has shifted. You've put aside your triptych for a moment and started on a new piece, a self-portrait. But it's not a portrait of your physical face. It's a portrait of your heart. You're using the same somber tones you started with, but you're adding more layers, more shades of blue and gray to reflect the sorrow and the unrequited feelings that are now your constant companions. You're painting the face you show the world, the one that's calm and collected, but you're also painting the turmoil underneath, the pain, the silent love. You remember that a while ago, you noticed how your portraits were no longer just about the subject, but about your feelings for Julian. Now, this is a conscious decision. This self-portrait is a conversation with yourself, an exploration of your own emotions. You're painting the way you look at him when he's not looking, the way your heart aches a little when he talks about Clara, the way you feel a quiet sort of joy when he simply laughs. You're painting a self-portrait of a person who is in love with someone who is in love with someone else. It's a complicated, painful, and deeply authentic piece of work. Julian, meanwhile, is still working on his sculpture of Clara, but he seems more determined now. The confession has unlocked something in him, an even deeper well of emotion. He's not just sculpting her, he's sculpting his feelings for her. You can see the longing in the way he shapes the clay, the sadness in the way he carves the stone. It's a beautiful and tragic thing to watch. You find yourself feeling a strange mixture of emotions. You're still hurting, of course, but you're also filled with a kind of reverence for his love. It's a pure, unselfish thing, this love he has for Clara, and you can't help but be moved by it. One evening, you look up from your canvas and see him staring at your self-portrait. You freeze, a little panicked. Has he figured it out? Can he see the truth in your painting? He walks over, his eyes scanning your work. He doesn't say anything for a long time, just studies it. Then he says, "It's so honest." The eyes, they're full of so much. He doesn't say what they're full of, but you know. He knows. He's looking at a portrait of himself, of his impact on you, and he sees it. There's a quiet understanding that passes between you, a silent acknowledgement of the complex feelings that are now part of your shared artistic space. You don't need to say anything. The art has done the talking. You remember that little joke you used to make about not surviving the emotional baggage. Well, you're both lugging some pretty heavy bags now, aren't you? The confession has created a new kind of intimacy between you and Julian, one built on a foundation of shared, unspoken pain. You've both poured your hearts into your art, and you've both seen the truth in each other's work. The atmosphere in the studio, once so light and full of creative energy, is now thick with a quiet, profound sadness. And then, one day, Clara comes to the studio, not for a sitting, but just to visit. The air shifts immediately. Julian is different. He's more alert, a little more guarded. You find yourself a little on edge, too, but you try to act normal. You're back in the presence of the impossible muse, the one who holds a piece of Julian's heart that you're working on a new canvas when you hear her voice. She's not talking to Julian, she's talking to you. She's looking at your self-portrait, the one that's really a portrait of your love for Julian. "This is beautiful," she says, her voice soft and a little husky. "It's so sad." You look at her, and you see her face up close for the first time, really see it. There's a stillness in her eyes, a kind of weary wisdom that seems to come from a deep place. You find yourself asking her, "Why so sad?" She doesn't answer right away. She just looks at your painting, at the raw, honest emotion in it. Then she says, "It's not your sadness I see in your painting. It's mine." You and Julian both look at her, a little stunned. She smiles, a small, sad curve of her lips. She walks over to Julian's unfinished sculpture of her, and she runs a hand over the clay. "He always sees it," she says. "He always tries to capture it." She sits down on a stool, and she starts to talk, not to you or Julian, but to the room, to the art. She tells you her story, not the whole story, but enough of it to make you both understand. She was once a dancer, a beautiful, free spirit who loved nothing more than to move. But she had an accident, a terrible fall, and her career was over. The physical wounds healed, but the emotional ones never did. She lost her identity, her passion, her way of being in the world. She's been living with this quiet grief, this profound loss, ever since. She explains that she's never been able to let anyone get close because she's afraid they'll see the broken parts of her. She's afraid that if she lets someone love her, they'll be disappointed when they realize she's not the person she used to be. She's not a muse, she's a survivor. And she sees Julian's love not as a gift, but as a potential burden. She's afraid that his art, his love, will try to fix her, and she doesn't believe she can be fixed. You remember how you always joked about how you wouldn't survive it. Well, she's not surviving, she's enduring. And Julian, who has been listening silently, finally says, "I don't want to fix you, Clara. I just want to capture your truth. All of it. The air in the room shifts again, and this time, it's not with sadness, but with a new kind of understanding. Clara's story changes everything. It's as if a veil has been lifted, and you both see her and each other in a new light. The impossible muse is no longer a distant ideal, but a person, a human being with a history and a profound sense of loss. Julian's love for her is no longer a simple, painful longing, but a deep, compassionate empathy. Your own unrequited feelings for Julian feel a little less selfish now, a little more part of a bigger, more complicated picture. And Julian's love for Clara feels less like a burden and more like an offering. He's not trying to fix her, he's trying to honor her. The three of you find yourselves in a new space, a space of understanding and shared purpose. You're not two artists and a muse anymore. You're three people, connected by art and a complicated web of emotions. It's Clara who suggests it. "What if," she says, her voice still soft, but with a new conviction, "we all worked on a piece together?" You look at Julian, and he looks at you. The idea is so wild, so unexpected, that it's almost impossible not to say yes. A collaborative piece, a giant, ambitious project that would blend your art forms and your emotions. A sculpture that would not just be of Clara, but of her story and of your two interpretations of it. You start to plan, and the studio is filled with a new kind of creative energy. It's no longer a quiet, tense space, but a vibrant, collaborative hub. The piece is going to be massive. Julian will sculpt the core, the essence of Clara, her still, sad heart. You will paint a canvas that will serve as the backdrop, a vibrant, chaotic landscape that represents her past, her dreams, and the life she lost. Clara herself will contribute, not as a model, but as a partner. She will find objects from her past, old dance shoes, a ribbon, a faded photograph, and you will incorporate them into the sculpture and the painting. She will be the one to give the piece a voice, a soul. The work is hard, but it's exhilarating. You're no longer working alone in your own little worlds. You're a team, a single creative unit. You and Julian are constantly talking, debating, and compromising. You argue about the color of a shadow, the curve of a line. You fight about the placement of a piece of metal, a stray bit of paint. But the arguments aren't fueled by rivalry or jealousy. They're fueled by a shared desire to make this piece perfect, to honor Clara's story. And Clara is there, too, watching you both, offering her input, her own perspective on her own life. It's a beautiful, messy, complicated process. You remember how in section 4 you were worried about what might happen if you told Julian about your feelings. Well, you never did. But this feels like an even more profound expression of love, doesn't it? It's a love that isn't about two people coming together, but about three people creating something beautiful out of a shared brokenness. The collaborative project is in full swing, and it's both a beautiful symphony and a chaotic storm. You and Julian are working so closely that your creative processes are starting to meld into one. He'll suggest a shade of blue for your canvas, and you'll suggest a different texture for the metal in his sculpture. Clara is an active participant, not just a subject. She's found an old, worn-out pair of ballet shoes that you've carefully attached to the side of the sculpture, a silent testament to the dreams she lost. She's given you a journal, and you've copied some of the phrases, the thoughts, the feelings onto the canvas, letting her words become a part of the painting. But the creative intimacy, the constant close proximity, brings with it a new kind of friction. The unspoken emotions, the jealousy, the longing, they're still there, simmering just beneath the surface. One evening, you're working on the painting, trying to capture the feeling of flight in a swirl of colors. Julian is working on the sculpture, and he asks Clara a question about a specific moment in her past, a moment that seems to hold a lot of weight for her. She answers him, her voice soft, and you can see a flicker of a deep, knowing connection between them, a shared understanding that you're not a part of. And a sharp, painful jolt of jealousy shoots through you. You say something sarcastic, something about how he's a sculptor, not a psychiatrist. The words are out of your mouth before you can stop them. Julian freezes, and Clara looks at you, her face a mask of surprise and hurt. The air in the studio turns thick, tense. Julian puts down his tools and looks at you, his eyes a little angry, a little confused. "What was that for?" he asks, his voice low. And the dam breaks. The feelings you've been holding back for weeks, the silent love, the quiet ache, the frustration of being the outsider, they all come spilling out. You don't say you love him, not in so many words, but you talk about the unfairness of it all, of how you're always the one on the outside looking in, of how his heart is so preoccupied with someone who doesn't want it. The words are raw, ugly, and full of a pain that you've been carrying for too long. Julian doesn't get angry. He gets quiet. He just looks at you, and you can see the realization dawning in his eyes, the understanding of what this has all been about. Clara, meanwhile, stands up and quietly walks away, her head down. The silence she leaves behind is even louder than the argument you just had. The beautiful, fragile collaboration has been shattered. The art, once a reflection of a shared purpose, now feels like a monument to your shared heartbreak. It's a low moment, a painful one. The art that once connected you has now driven a wedge between you. You feel a sudden, overwhelming urge to just leave, to run away from the beautiful mess you've all created. The argument hangs in the air like a foul odor. Clara has left, and it's just you and Julian in the studio, surrounded by the beautiful, unfinished mess of your collaboration. You feel terrible, the kind of terrible that makes your stomach feel hollow. You look at him, and he just looks at you, his face unreadable. You want to apologize, to take back the words, but you can't. They were the truth, and once the truth is out, you can't put it back in. After a long, painful silence, he says, "Let's get out of here." You nod, grateful for the chance to escape the studio, the art, the emotions that are all too big for the space. You walk out into the cool night air, the streetlights a blur. You don't talk for a while, just walk. You end up in a small, quiet park. The kind of park with old, gnarled trees and a little pond. You sit down on a bench, and you just stare at the water, at the reflection of the moon on the surface. Then, he speaks. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice quiet. You look at him, surprised. "What are you sorry for?" you ask. "For not seeing it," he says. "For not seeing what you were feeling. I was so caught up in my own mess that I didn't see yours." He looks at you, and his eyes are soft, full of a kind of regret you haven't seen before. "I've been in love with Clara for so long that I forgot what it was like to feel something else. I didn't see that I was hurting you." And then you talk, really talk, for the first time since this all started. You talk about your own feelings, the quiet love you felt for him, the way his presence has influenced your art, your life. You're not accusing him or blaming him. You're just telling him the truth. And he listens. He talks about his love for Clara, about the impossibility of it, about the pain of wanting to help someone who doesn't want to be helped. He talks about his fears, the fear that his art will never be enough, that his love will never be enough. You talk about your fears, the fear that you'll always be a person who loves from a distance, who can only capture emotion on a canvas but can't experience it in real life. It's a moment of profound, painful honesty. You realize that your love for him and his love for Clara aren't so different. They are both born from a deep, compassionate place. They are both about seeing a beautiful, broken person and wanting to honor their truth. You're not rivals for his affection. You're two different people who have found a different way to love a different person. You're both just trying to navigate the messy, complicated world of human emotion. You finally feel a sense of clarity, a moment of peace. You look at Julian, at his tired face, and you see not just the man you love, but a fellow traveler on a difficult, beautiful journey. You remember that crocodile poop sunscreen joke? Well, this moment feels a little like that, a strange, unexpected truth that surprisingly works. The air is still heavy with the emotions of the night before, but a new lightness has settled over the studio. The conversation in the park has changed everything. It's no longer just a workspace. It's a space of shared history, of shared secrets, of shared understanding. You and Julian go back to work on the collaboration, but the energy is different now. It's more honest, more purposeful. You're not fighting to get your voices heard. You're working together, side by side, to tell a single story. You're not just creating art. You're creating a monument to a beautiful, complicated relationship. One afternoon, you're working on the final touches of the painting, adding a splash of vibrant red to a corner to represent a moment of Clara's joy, a moment she shared with you in her story. You look up, and Julian is standing there, holding something in his hands. It's small, and it's wrapped in a piece of old cloth. He walks over to you and holds it out. "I want you to have this," he says, his voice quiet. You take it, and you unwrap the cloth. Your breath catches in your throat. It's a miniature of the hidden sculpture you found in the storage room. The one of Clara, seated, vulnerable, a testament to her pain. But this one is different. This one is finished. That he explains that after your conversation, he went back to the room and finished the piece. He sculpted the last hand, the one that was just a rough shape, and he smoothed out the cracked clay. He finished it not for Clara, not for himself, but for you. You saw the truth in that piece, he says. You saw her pain, and you saw mine. And you didn't run away. He looks at the miniature in your hands. This isn't about her anymore, he says. It's about the moment we shared, the moment you saw me, really saw me. You hold the little sculpture, the smooth stone cool against your palm. You can see the love in it, the tenderness, the empathy. But it's not just for Clara anymore. It's also for you. It's a piece of his heart, a token of a love that is no longer about longing, but about understanding. You don't say anything, but you don't have to. The gift, the finished sculpture, says it all. You're not a rival for his affection. You're a confidant, a fellow artist, a person who understands the quiet, complicated language of his heart. You put the miniature on a shelf next to your paints, a new muse, a new source of inspiration. The studio is no longer a place of quiet competition, but a place of profound connection. The day of the exhibition is finally here. The three of you have been working nonstop, fueled by coffee and a shared sense of purpose. The collaborative piece is done, and it's magnificent. It's a massive thing, a swirl of metal, stone, wood, and canvas, a symphony of form and color. Julian's sculpture of Clara, once a symbol of his impossible love, is now the core of the piece, surrounded by a whirlwind of your painting. Clara's objects, the dance shoes, the journal pages, are incorporated into the work, a quiet testament to her resilience. The whole thing is a powerful, emotional, beautiful mess. You stand there, in the center of the gallery, and you look at your creation. It's not just a piece of art. It's a story, a narrative arc of a complicated, painful, beautiful relationship. The art world is stunned. People are whispering, talking, trying to understand the emotional power of the piece. They see Julian's love, your quiet admiration, and Clara's profound sadness all woven into a single, cohesive work. You hear a famous art critic say, "It's raw, it's honest. It's not just a love story. It's a story about the love of art itself. And he's right. The piece is a mirror of your journey together, a beautiful, tragic, and deeply authentic reflection of everything you've been through. You look at Julian, and he looks at you. He smiles, a little tired, a little proud. You're no longer just two artists. You're a team, a partnership. You look for Clara, and you see her standing in the background, a small, sad smile on her face. She's not the impossible muse anymore. She's a part of this, a collaborator, a friend. Her story is now immortalized, not as a tragedy, but as a beautiful work of art. The piece has not only told her story, but has also given her a new purpose, a new way of being in the world. The gallery is a blur of people, of flashing cameras and hushed conversations. But for you, the only thing that matters is the two people standing next to you. You've created something beautiful out of a shared brokenness, something that is a testament to the fact that even the most complicated emotions can be transformed into something magnificent. You realize that your love for Julian and his love for Clara and Clara's love for her past have all become a single, beautiful thing. And you wouldn't have it any other way. The exhibition is a huge success. The collaborative piece gets rave reviews, and the three of you are thrust into the spotlight, not just as artists, but as a fascinating story. People want to know about the process, about the emotions, about the story behind the art. But the art world, you find, can only tell you so much about a person's heart. The true story is not in the galleries or the magazines. It's back in the quiet, dusty studio where the real work happened. The three of you continue to work together, but the dynamic has changed again. The creative intensity has subsided, replaced by a quiet, comfortable companionship. You're not just collaborators, you're friends, a little family forged in the fire of art and emotion. You still have your own projects, of course. You're working on a new series of portraits, and Julian is working on a new series of sculptures. But you still share the studio, still take breaks together, still talk about your fears and your hopes. The relationship between you and Julian is a complicated, beautiful thing. It's not a romantic one, not in the traditional sense. It's something deeper. It's a love born not of a passionate romance, but of a profound, painful understanding. You love him, of course. That will never go away. But it's no longer a painful, unrequited love. It's a quiet, gentle love, a love that is a part of your being, a love that is simply there, like the air you breathe. You've let go of the idea of having him in a romantic way, and in doing so, you've gained something far more valuable: his friendship, his trust, his companionship. And Julian and Clara? Their relationship is also a complicated, beautiful thing. They are still just friends, but their friendship is so deep, so full of shared history and understanding, that it's a love story in its own right. He's no longer trying to fix her, he's just there for her, a quiet, constant presence in her life. She's no longer the impossible muse. She's a person who is slowly, carefully, learning to live with her past. And you are a part of their story, just as they are a part of yours. You've all become so intertwined, so connected, that it's hard to imagine your lives without each other. The ending is not a simple, happily ever after, but a profound, uncertain conclusion, a new beginning built on the ashes of what you once thought you wanted. The collaborative piece is now on display in a major museum, a testament to the three of you and the story you told together. But the real story, as you now know, is not in the museum. It's in the quiet of the studio, the place where it all began. You're there now alone. Julian is out getting supplies, and Clara is off doing something for herself, a new thing she's trying, a step towards a new life. The studio is quiet, and the sun is setting, casting long, golden shadows across the floor. You're not working on a new piece of art, not yet. You're just sitting on a stool, looking at your space, at the brushes and the paints and the half-finished canvases, and you're thinking about the journey you've been on. You think about that first night at the gallery, the instant, unspoken connection you felt with Julian. You think about the quiet, creative rivalry, the discovery of the hidden sculpture, the painful confession, the beautiful, messy collaboration, the argument in the studio, and the profound conversation in the park. You think about how you came here looking for a creative partnership and found something much more complicated, much more beautiful. You came here looking for an artist to admire and found a friend to love. You came here looking to create art and found that the art created you. You realized that a love story doesn't have to be a simple, two-person affair. It can be a complex, multidimensional thing, a story of three people, of art and emotion, of love and friendship and empathy. You finally pick up a canvas, a blank one, and you dip your brush in a brilliant shade of gold. You start to paint, not a face, not a figure, but a single line, a single curve. It's a new piece, a new beginning. It's not about Julian or Clara or the past. It's about the future, about a new kind of love, a new kind of art. It's a piece that captures the bittersweet, complicated beauty of the love you experienced, a love that was not about taking, but about giving, a love that was not about a single person, but about a shared humanity. You know that you're a better artist for it, and you're a better person. You remember the old joke about surviving with all that emotional baggage? Well, you didn't just survive it. You made something beautiful out of it. The sun has finally set, and the studio is now bathed in the gentle glow of the city lights outside. The dust motes are no longer golden, but a soft, ethereal gray, still dancing in the air. The sounds of the city are a distant hum, a low, constant murmur that you can feel more than you can hear. It's time to turn off the lights and close your eyes. Let the story settle in your mind. Let the images fade into the soft, quiet space of your dreams. Think about the artist, the sculptor, the quiet muse, and the beautiful, complicated art they made together. It's a reminder that love doesn't always look the way you expect it to. Sometimes it's a canvas, sometimes it's a piece of stone, and sometimes it's just a quiet, understanding smile. Just let it all go now, the thoughts, the worries, the stories, and drift away into a peaceful, quiet sleep.